I'm here today with Kim Marlor from KMA Accountancy, and we are going to be talking about how Kim started a practice, how she generates leads, and around how she offshores the work. And we're also going to be having a conversation with Kim about how she masterminds and gets value out of the mastermind community. So hello, Kim.
Hi.
So without further ado, let's get started. Kim, without further ado, this is fingers crossed the mic's going to come on and the camera's going to come on and Kim will miraculously appear. Look at that. Brilliant. It works. It works. All the planning that goes into the conversation. There's always that slightly nerve-wracking moment when I feel like I might be talking to myself. So without further ado, Kim, let's start sharing with the community. So first up, Kim, just give me a little bit of, I don't want your life, I don't want this is your life, Kim, but just give us a little bit of background about where you are in the world and what sort of practice you've got.
Okay. Morning, everybody. I've got a practice up in the northwest. I have got around about 120 clients across the whole cross section. And I've got 5 team members, and it's probably worth me saying that I'm a chartered management accountant as well.
Brilliant, Kim. Thank you. Now, the first question is about how you got started, and I know there's lots of CIMA members or CIMA MiP members on the call today. So, what made you start? What gave you the courage to start? How did you leave industry and start your own practice? What was the sort of fire in the belly?
Okay. When I was first studying, I looked at ACCA, ACA and CIMA, and I always wanted to kind of do a consultancy business. And so I therefore decided that CIMA was the right route for me, and obviously did that. When I came to leave, I worked in PLC land, so I qualified with Barclays Bank, and then it's a bit kind of who's who of PLC land. And I got fed up of the company politics and thought there's got to be more out there. And at the time, again, to cut a very long story short, my dad had a business. His accountant wasn't very, was one of the major accountants in the area. But all he got told was, his insurance year on year had gone up and no real advice. And I thought there has to be a better way. So effectively, I saw a gap in the market to look forward and not backwards. And that's how I came to set up.
Brilliant, thank you. And just how did you feel, Kim, as you went through that process? Just so, because lots of people, they're challenged by the emotions around taking that leap of faith. So how did you feel about that?
It was extremely scary. Again, without going into kind of life history, there was a number of changes that were happening in my life. I was at a crossroads. I was being asked to relocate down to London, and I didn't want to go. Built my life up in the northwest, and so I thought, well, it's now or never. So it was extremely scary because obviously it was down to me. But again, I've got a great support network in terms of friends and my dad, who's always been a bit of an idol for me, and he just went, go for it. You've got nothing to lose. You can always get another job, and so that's what just kind of gave me the oomph. Just somebody else believing in me.
Thank you. And I know the switch from CIMA or switch from industry into practice, there's some yin and yang to that. There's some advantages and some disadvantages. So if we deal with the disadvantages first, so the questions coming from Pete and Tim around how do you cover your perceived shortfalls potentially? So as a CIMA member, you might not have the tax knowledge, for example. How did you deal with that? And how do you see other CIMA members dealing with that sort of lack of knowledge?
I went to a kind of members in practice event and just basically spoke to people and just found out how other people had done it effectively. Don't be afraid to go and ask questions, because actually, as you can probably gather from Simon's groups, there's a lot of help and support out there, and people are great. So I just went and asked questions, found out where I thought my gaps were, obviously wrote a kind of basic business plan, and then thought, right, okay, yeah, I do need to upskill my tax. So just went on some courses, basically.
Brilliant. So there are lots of opportunities out there for people to get the knowledge either from Facebook or LinkedIn, always with the caveat that it's LinkedIn and Facebook advice rather than proper advice. And then there are also obviously practitioners out there from a CIMA perspective. There are practitioners out there that specialize in tax. And I know lots of them are welcome to do an advice line and then provide the extra support if necessary with your customers in order to make sure that they are looked after. So
I particularly asked for help, and I'm sure whichever institute you're a member of, there will be a kind of members in practice meetings area. I particularly went and asked for help. I put my head above the parapet a little bit too much, I think, by going to a kind of Northwest meeting, found out what was around, and I got asked to join the National Committee for Members in Practice, which was a little bit scary being a newbie and everybody else being so experienced. I felt like a bit of an imposter, but actually it was the best thing I could have done by actually reaching out and asking for help, because some of the very successful guys within CIMA then mentored me effectively, and I learned about where to go for help, because obviously they've done that, they've trodden that step. So don't be afraid to ask. There's loads of groups, and now there's even more, because obviously when I started out, kind of 14, 15 years ago, there was, the internet wasn't anywhere near what it is now, and there wasn't YouTube and all the rest of it. So in some respects, it is easier, but as Simon said, be a little bit careful, because obviously just because people are putting advice out there doesn't necessarily mean it's correct.
Thank you. And Nikita, I've got your question, and that's a great question for the beginning of the next section. Just before we get to that, just what do you believe, or what do you believe a CIMA MiP's advantage is going into practice over, say, a more traditional accountant that's qualified and gone through the practice process? So the disadvantage is potentially the tax knowledge. What's the advantage, Kim?
The advantage is we've worked in a business, we've worked in industry. We've worked with all aspects of the business, and usually gained a lot of knowledge. It may be very specialist if you've done, treasury for argument's sake, but most CIMA members have seen across the whole kind of business front. So you've seen manufacturing, you've seen supply, you've seen operations, finance, sales and marketing, etc. So you've worked with the business leaders and helped them to grow their business. And so you've got that holistic approach, which puts you in a really good position to be able to advise small business owners, because it's the same problems, it's just on a different scale, that's all.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. So let's move on to lead generation. I know you're passionate about lead generation. Transfixed is even a word that we could perhaps use. So let's have a conversation about the different things that you do and the methodologies behind how you generate the leads. And I'll begin with Nikita's question. How did you find your first customer?
Oh, how did I find my first customer? That's a great question. Back when I started, it was a case of talk to everybody you know. So I had a good social network. So I went and told, everybody that I was setting up, and lots of people said, great, can you help me? Obviously my dad, because he had a business, was great in terms of telling me what he'd done, and obviously I'd seen what he'd done as well. So it's that kind of drive and determination. So decide what you want to do, be crystal clear, and I wasn't at the beginning. If I could say anything, in terms of the types of clients you want and the types that you don't want. And again, I know not everybody's in a lovely position, but don't sell yourself short. If you don't want to deal with a particular industry, don't do it, because actually you'll get yourself in more trouble and you'll end up spending a lot of time researching. So mine was a combination of effectively networking, get on LinkedIn, tell everybody what you're doing, and don't be afraid to don't hide your light under a bushel. After that, I felt, again, it was a very different landscape to how it is now. There was no Facebook, there was no Google AdWords initially. That came a little bit later. So it really was at the kind of pioneering stage. So it was very much about connections and networking, and just getting out there and meeting people, and then obviously recommendations from your existing clients. I was also lucky that again, one of my mentors gave me a couple of his clients. Sadly, he's no longer with us, which was lovely, and they're still with me today, which is fabulous. After that, I've always been interested in sales and marketing, but traditionally in the PLC world that I lived in, you couldn't get into marketing unless you had a sales background, which I thought was kind of madness, really, because whilst they are connected, they are very, very different. So I made sure, I've always had a kind of passion for it. So I made sure I read lots of books and obviously went on courses and such like. And I would definitely say, whether you've got a passion for it or not, you've got to know something about it, in the respect that if you're going to outsource it, and I'm a great advocate of outsourcing stuff, because obviously you've only got so much time and you've got to focus on moving your business forward. But you've got to know what you're doing, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing. So they might talk a good talk, but actually you're going to end up wasting money. And we've all done it. We've all made mistakes. I did telemarketing, for example, initially, and that worked really well for me. Then, for one reason or another, that company closed, and I went to a big company that supposedly worked well with professionals and solicitors, and I spent a lot of money, but they didn't actually deliver anything, which again was a little bit frustrating. But we're not necessarily the greatest telephone appointment makers, because we're accountants at the end of the day. Most of us are a bit scared about picking up the phone. So if you can find the right people to work with, I'd definitely do that.
So just jumping in on the telemarketing thing, because I know this is a conversation that comes up in the community quite a lot. There was obviously a successful one, and there was an unsuccessful one. In my experience, most accountancy practices that work with telemarketing companies, they fail. Can you identify what was the characteristics of the successful one? Why do you think that worked?
I think it was because the initial company, it was two ladies, two friends, and one of the ladies, her husband was a CIMA member, so he was an accountant, so he knew, she knew what he was, the world that he operated in. I think they were just very good in terms of, tenacious and actually very good at what they did, and they cared. It was their business. The problem you've got when you're dealing with, bigger businesses is the person at the top might know their stuff, but unfortunately, unless the sales and unless the processes and systems are working efficiently and they've been trained well, then and again, it depends very much on how they're remunerated. Because if they're just remunerated on getting you a call with somebody, then obviously it might not be qualified and might not be very good. So I think it was just the size and the desire. And in my experience, I've never found a good telemarketer since. It's been very, very difficult. So, and you get this a lot as well in networking. Again, it's all about who's around the table and who's good in that group. Because a lot of people, because they're in it for themselves, will just pass you a lead, and it's no better than a name on a piece of paper, and you can waste your time. So it is very much about understanding the people, how it's working, and making sure that they understand you and what you're looking for. So you've got to be crystal clear about who you want to talk to.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've got questions flying in from all sorts of directions now, Kim. So, David says that he made the same mistake as what you did with a telemarketing company. So, and I've heard that. Heard that lots of times. So you've mentioned a couple of times there about being clear on who it is that you want to work with. So, and one of the questions that came in from Gemma was, do you niche? Have you identified a niche? Do you niche?
I've really wrestled with this, because depending on who you listen to in the industry, they'll say, yes, you need to niche, and you need to niche on a vertical. Or I've also heard very successful people saying you don't need to niche. I think it's definitely easier if you niche, We always say on our marketing, it's entrepreneurial and family-owned businesses. So we do have a kind of niche. However, I'm experimenting with more specific niches. And that's worked, in the past, that's worked quite well for me because you've got the experience. So if you are thinking about niching, you can niche in a geographical area of local businesses around you within a certain radius. You can also niche in a particular sector, in terms of, I don't know, printers, web designers, digital marketing, whatever. And obviously there are some very successful practices around the country that do that. So it's totally up to you, but it does make it easier in some respects because you can really tailor your marketing and speak to them. The classic example I always give of this is very much like whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump knew exactly what he needed to do to get into the White House. And he wasn't vanilla, he didn't try to appeal to everybody. He just went, this is what I stand for. And if you're very strong and put your head above the kind of parapet and say, this is who I want to work with, you will attract the right people with the same values as you.
Brilliant, thank you. And let me just expand on that if I can. So if there was one thing other than recommendations and referrals, Kim, if there was one lead generation, we're talking about new customers here rather than generating leads internally. If there was one thing that you've done over the years to generate leads, what would that be? What would be the best one, do you think?
I think it's very difficult to actually say the best thing because I've done different things. It's about being consistent and getting your name out there. People, you want to be forefront of mind when somebody wants an accountant effectively. So I suppose for me, I've gone through kind of phases and, as we all do, and then we stop doing the stuff that works for some reason and then we kind of come back to it. So I did do Google AdWords. I had a company that was doing that for me and that worked really well for quite a while. Then it, like most marketing things that, the next best thing comes out or marketing moves on. So I moved away from that. And I know that, that's not as kind of effective as it has been in the past. Facebook, believe it or not, has been quite good for me. Now lots of people balk at that and say, no, not going to be there. But actually, again, it depends who your market is. Because if your market's 20-somethings just starting out with a business, the gig economy or whatever, then they're not going to be on Facebook. They're going to be on some other social media. But if your market is, successful kind of entrepreneurial business owners, probably in the 40s, 50s, then they might not be on Facebook, but they might be. But their wives will be, and they've usually got a lot of time on their hands, and again, we'll share things. So it's just a case of really understanding who your avatar is. If it's professional business owners, bigger business owners, that might be LinkedIn. For me, it's about being crystal clear on who I'm trying to target, and then it's kind of not putting all my eggs in one basket nowadays. It's very much about kind of rhythmic acquisition and get a few pillars going. Now, you're not going to do that from day one. So focus on one, get it going, and then move on to the next one. And outsource it. It doesn't have to be particularly onerous, but what it does need to be is consistent.
Okay, so let's just delve a little deeper on the Facebook. So it's not necessarily, my understanding of what you just said, Kim, it's not necessarily the medium of communication, it's where that person is that you want. So if your ideal market's on Facebook, go to Facebook. If it's LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn. If it's Google, Google. If it's Instagram, it's Instagram. But you need to have clarity on where it is that you're going.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then we'll delve in and we'll use Facebook because that's the one that you but they're transferable. What do you physically do on Facebook in order to create those leads? Just give me 2 or 3 examples of stuff that we could do tomorrow in order to start the process.
Okay. Facebook's probably not the best one in terms of starting tomorrow, unless you've got somebody already that's, your marketing kind of person. Because these days, again, Facebook's moved on like all social media does. And in the past, where you could just have your own account and post and people would see it, it's getting very much harder these days to get seen. So you might have loads and loads of people who like your page, but they won't actually, because they're not engaged with you, they won't actually be shown your content. So you're going to have to do Facebook ads, a bit like Google ads were sort of 10 years ago. Again, you can waste a lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. So I'd certainly, pick up a book or go on a course or something. But ultimately, get some good, what I would call lead magnets. So downloadable guides. It doesn't have to be, a full book, but obviously something. So if your target market is, I don't know, painters and decorators, for argument's sake, have a download that's specific to painters and decorators that says, top 7 tips to really grow your business, or whatever their pain point is that is particularly, important to them, and do a lead generation ad, so that you can be very targetable around, the geographical location. You've got to, and this is where you need to understand your avatar, who it is, what they're like, what they do, what they read, where they hang out, all of that kind of stuff, because you can really target that within Facebook. And then ultimately you do a great sort of headline, ad and a bit of copy, and ultimately obviously pay to put that in front of them, and then they click download it, you get the details.
Brilliant, thank you. So just because we talk in a language sometimes, because we know what, so we're talking about package information and lead magnets and things like that. Right. So just for purposes of clarity, Kim, just describe what one of those lead magnets could be.
Right, it could be a 2-page, Word document, effectively, that you've just put your details on, and you've put some top tips, top hacks for a business owner to grow his business. So you want to be helpful, and by helping, you give them sort of 95% of the answers, as it were, but not all of them, so that they'll then come back to you, effectively. But be helpful, and show that you're an expert in that particular area, and then people will come to you. But it can't be the usual kind of, what everybody else does. Don't be afraid to stand out, and do something different, because around about sort of 60% of business owners are just getting by and not actually that successful. So you might see another accountant in your area and think, I've got to do what they're doing. Doesn't mean that they're particularly successful. So don't copy somebody that's not doing very well.
Brilliant, thank you. And I also know that you're quite passionate about video and doing video. Can you just, and I'm leading into a question from Stephen around some of the downsides of what you've done, but just talk to us before we get to that. Just talk about video, Kim. How did you get involved in that? What's the idea, the thinking behind that, and is it what has it generated?
Okay, everybody is very busy. Most people won't spend a lot of time on. Everyone looks at their phones these days, so it's very easy to scroll through. So what you want to do is a pattern interrupt, effectively, and that's what a video does. It makes somebody stop and take note. So it's very much about, short snippets. It doesn't have to be that long. It's all about the content. If it's good content and it's, helping somebody, then they'll watch it. If it's benign, same as everybody else's, boring, then they won't. So I got involved because very few people were using video, and it was just a way to stand out and be a bit different, because accountants, didn't do video. It's like anything, isn't it? More and more people are now, but it still doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. More and more people are watching video and consuming content. You've only got to look at YouTube. It's the second largest search engine after Google. So I definitely say give it a go. most of us hate looking at ourselves, me included. I really cringe. I kind of, the first video I did, I was, oh, my mouth moves up on one side, and oh, you can see all my lines, or my hair's not right. Get over yourself. Nobody cares. It's about the content. I've seen so many people say, I can't do video because I'm not very good, I'm not very well spoken, I'm not this, I'm not that. Just get over yourself and just do it, because it does make you stand out. And we actually use a lot of videos in the course of business in terms of sharing certain information with clients. There are various pieces of software out there like Loom or BombBomb where you can do that. And again, we get an amazing reaction from clients and prospects
by doing it. So I'm just slightly conscious of the time. We've got lots of stuff to get through. So just how do you come up with the content, Kim? I know it's one of those things where people say, well, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to write about. Where does that inspiration come from?
Just what's going on around you, what other people are talking about, what's in the news, headlines, the common questions that you get asked from clients and prospects. Just jot it down and write about it.
And away you go. So just to finish off then on the lead generation, and I'm going to go through, I've got lots of questions. We're going to go through these in a rapid fire machine gun fashion in a minute. But
okay.
just to answer Stephen's question, because Stephen's coming out from the flip side. So can Kim be open and honest about the downside of her attempted lead generation drive as well as her success? So other than the tele-sales flop disaster, is there anything else that you would admit to having tried and not been successful at?
We've all tried stuff. I suppose the biggest thing for me is we're so busy, we outsource it and we don't think about it. And then somebody's not got the same vision as you. I've made lots of mistakes, as I think everyone has. So just think about what you want and be crystal clear.
Brilliant. Thank you. So let's fire down some questions that have already come in. And so thank you for the questions. And if you want to pop them in the Q&A box, then we will gladly answer them. So Lorraine has asked, can you give some examples of one or two of the tax courses that you went on to improve your knowledge? Can you think that far back, Kim?
It depends what's relevant at the time. Talk to somebody that you know, but there's lots and lots of providers that do updates. You can also do one of the professional tax courses. I mean, I actually started doing CTA, but I then got pregnant, so I had to kind of put that one on hold. But there's lots of things that you can do, just whatever's relevant at the time.
Brilliant. I've got some ideas, Lorraine, as well. So if you want to send them across, there's 2020, do some good courses for me, some good practical courses. Mercy is another one. Tax TV, I know lots of members subscribe to that because they get the updates and whatnot. So if you want me to fire those across, Lorraine, then please feel free to ask. Nikita's asked, sorry, blah, blah, blah. Do you recommend doing a part-time employed job until you get going?
Everyone's circumstances are different. Obviously that makes it harder because you've then got to do the kind of bringing in the clients, and there's an element that, feet to the fire. I've got to make this work, and you'll make it work and have a plan. It's up to you as an individual, really.
Brilliant. So just for me to add on to that, Nikita, I know there's lots of people out there at the moment, given where we are with the pandemic, that have left employers and have set up on their own. But there are lots of accountancy practices out there that are looking for subcontract labor just to do accounts and simple stuff. So there's a tremendous market out there if you're looking to get going.
That's a really good idea.
So there's never been a better time really in my world, but I'm saying that from a place of security rather than the scary aspect of kicking on. So then Rob's asked, what software do you use for quoting and pricing?
Oh, I've used all sorts. I've used Excel spreadsheets, paid versions, currently use GoProposal.
And all the stuff that goes along with that, Rob. And I think it's fair to say,
there's
Kim,
Carbon, there's all sorts that you can use.
And I think it's fair to say, Kim, that we all have challenges around pricing and making sure that we communicate it in the right way to the customer. So Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that goes along with that, Rob. But yeah, it's go proposal at the moment. Andrew's asked, do you have a minimum fee or client size that you work for?
We target small limited companies, so around about sort of 1,500 and above. We don't particularly target sole traders, so I guess we do in that respect.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Tracy has made a comment. I think my lead magnet during the pandemic has been telling my local community on Facebook about the latest changes, refurlough, SEIIS, SSSIE, and didn't realize that it was a magnet, but I've got a few clients through it. So just to expand on what Tracy shared there, am I right in saying, Kim, that a lead magnet is it's reusable and it's an attraction rather than giving away information? So it's something to capture an email address or a telephone number. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
because most people don't buy the first time they see you. We wouldn't go and buy something without doing a bit of research. There's lots of facts on that, and I can share those with Simon later. But yeah, it's something that they download in exchange for your email, and then you can continue to put them on your list and market to them.
Brilliant. So Tracy could bring all that information together and stick it in a PDF workbook or a Word document or whatever, and then it becomes a reusable until it goes out of date, obviously, but it becomes a reusable lead magnet in exchange for keeping in touch with somebody.
I did that. I produced a COVID guide last year in exchange for emails. So yeah, and well done for obviously getting clients from it.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you, Tracy. Shitan's asked, for video, Kim, do you do it yourself or do you get an expert to help you do it? Can you provide the name of the website or software that you're using to make the videos?
Okay. Again, personal choice, depends what you're doing. You can get started with a simple iPhone and you can do it yourself. You can get somebody else to hold it. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get going. Just get going and refine, because you will get better. In terms of putting that into, obviously put it onto YouTube, set yourself up with your own account. And again, you can, I use Mac because of my iPhone, so I would use iMovies, which is obviously free. But you can use, there are other ones that you can use. Obviously, you can actually put it on something like Upwork and get somebody offshore to edit it for you for very little cost. I do use a videographer now, just to get it a bit more kind of professional, and because I don't have a lot of time, but you don't need to.
Thank you. So the software from a PC point of view that works instead of iMovie on the Mac, is Camtasia. It's what I think that's the gold standard. It's what most people use. Is what we use when I'm working on a PC. And
I would say though, just quickly, probably get yourself. Oh, my brain's gone. Vimeo. Again, if you're going to do videos seriously, get yourself Vimeo, because if you're going to put it on your website, you want to host it on Vimeo, because if you host it on YouTube, put it on YouTube as well, but if you host it on YouTube, it will then bring up your competitors when you're, if you've got a prospect looking at you, you don't want them going off to a competitor's website. So host it on Vimeo.
Brilliant. So if all video on YouTube as a default, and then if you're going to add it to your website, then it wants to be on Vimeo. As a hosting platform. Excellent. Thank you. And then just remind me, Kim, when you was talking about sending videos to customers, you used BombBomb, did you say?
Yeah, you can use pieces of software like Loom or paid software, which is BombBomb, where you can just quickly record a video. Hi, Kim here. Just wanted to just go through that what we discussed, and then just send it out, and it's instant, and it gets an amazing kind of reaction. But there are other softwares that you can use. Loom, I think, is one of them.
Brilliant. And then Jan's asked, what should the budget be? If I'm going to do video, what do you think the budget should be?
Again, it depends, be crystal clear what you want from it, what you want your return to be. If you're just dabbling in the water, then do it on iPhone and don't have a budget effectively. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money. It depends on you, what you've got available, and what you want your return on investment to be.
Brilliant. So it can be, Jan, from my perspective, anything from free to stuff that you've already got, up to, well, tens of thousands of pounds, depending on what sort of camera you want, and lighting, and all the rest of it that you want set up. Andrew's asked, do you keep your, what software do you keep your list on? What CRM system do you use?
I would say, I wished I'd sorted out my CRM properly at the beginning, because you're very busy and it's difficult to change partway through. So I've got a paid version of MailChimp, so it's not really a full-blown CRM. HubSpot is amazing, but obviously can cost a fortune. There's a number of others, Capsule, there are some free ones. I wouldn't necessarily, again, don't spend like tons of money, Infusion soft, for example, some people have got, but it costs, it did cost, I think it's a lot cheaper now, but it did cost sort of £1,000 a month. And obviously, you've got to work to your budget. But I would go with one, make sure that you know what you want it to do. So do your research, make sure you document like what you want it to do, and then choose one and stick your nail in the mast, as it were, and stay with it, and just make it work. Don't necessarily go for something that's all singing and all dancing, because it probably you'll never use half of it. So think about what you want. You can, as I say, use MailChimp. I've got a paid version. There is a free version, and that does perfectly well in terms of basic reporting and sending emails out and such. Like where it doesn't do so well is when you're sending videos and knowing what somebody's watched, and being able to kind of easily send different emails. You've got to set it up properly. So it's time versus money, isn't it, on like everything, really.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're gonna move on to offshoring now, or outsourcing, whichever, offshoring, etc. I'm conscious of the time. I've got lots to get through, Kim. So, and the questions keep flooding in as well. Let's start with Jan's question, because it kind of moves into the offshoring as well. So, what practice management system do you use?
I use Onco. Again, looked at a number and went with that one because it suited us best. Again, it's not necessarily the one that everybody used, because I think Centre, and Accountancy Manager are the big ones. Again, just make sure it does what you want it to do, and then get it working properly. But like anything, you've got to implement and get stuff done.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, fundamentally, that's my advice as well, Jan. So there are, I'll say hundreds. There's obviously not hundreds of practice management software out there, but they all need work. They need some implementation. They need some action. And very often what people do is they look at the new shiny object, think, oh, I quite like that. And then they move on to the next one and the next one. And 3 or 4 years down the line, all they've done is tested 6 or 7 different pieces of software rather than actually implementing something. So that leads me on. The reason why I picked on that is from a practice management point of view. I would imagine if you're offshoring, then you need to have clarity over what it is that people are doing. Yeah. So just, can you share, before we get into the detail, Kim, what's the difference between offshoring and outsourcing? Okay.
Outsourcing is where you don't have necessarily control over who does what for you. You contract with a company, and they obviously have employees that do the work. Now, you may have a full-time person, and so you may have the same person, but obviously they'll follow the methods laid down by that company. Offshoring, on the other hand, whilst it's legally speaking not your employee, actually to all intents and purposes it is, because you train them, you manage them, they're part of your team, and they do what you want to do, when you want them to do it, and how you want them to do it.
Brilliant. So just building on that, then, how do you get them to do it? So how do you train them? Because obviously they're outside of the country, not sat next to you on the desk. How does it work?
As you would train any new person in your team, obviously you have got the kind of remoteness, but ultimately it's a case of how you would take them through training. So lots of conversations, systems, processes, Zoom calls, showing, reviewing, and feedback. you're going to have to go through the same process almost, even if you outsource, because they're not going to know what you're expecting. So again, great with offshoring because you can have as many conversations as you like, and obviously work in the way that you want them to work.
Brilliant, thank you. And how often do you have those conversations? Is there what works best for you?
Well, for us, because of the remoteness, we want them to feel part of the team. So we have a weekly huddle where we talk about what worked well from last week, what everyone's got this week, and so everyone goes around and obviously everyone knows, so that our person is Jerome, so he knows what everyone else is doing, and obviously if he needs any help, he can go to somebody. And then another member of the team, actually my husband, because I work with him, he's in charge of kind of operations, so he has a kind of daily conversation with Jerome to make sure he's okay and everything's fine. So sometimes that might be a training session, other times it might just be a 5-minute check-in. No different in some respects to how everyone's working when we're working remotely through COVID. It's lonely out there. I mean, Jerome is actually in a kind of 50-seat call center. It's a very good setup with other accountancy companies, as it were. So he's not lonely on his own, but ultimately it's important to have that kind of contact. But it's totally up to you. It's your employee effectively, so you set the ground rules.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Jan's just asked a question that's similar to Gareth's. So I'm always worried that a client won't like the fact that work is carried out outside of the UK. Do you use them for admin or actual work? So there's two questions in there.
Right.
Gareth was focusing.
You can use them for whatever you want. It depends, obviously, what their skill set is, and how you've recruited. So I use Upwork, for example, for one-off pieces of work on admin or marketing or video or whatever. Jerome is our member of the team, and he does kind of bookkeeping and that kind of stuff. So the way I dealt with it is I don't necessarily, I've always, in some respects, it's no different to you outsourcing stuff in the UK. You might subcontract stuff, whatever that might be, whether it's tax or what. As long as you've got an engagement letter that says that you reserve the right to kind of outsource, then it doesn't matter whether it's the UK or abroad. Obviously, you've got to make sure that it's secure and GDPR compliant and all the rest of it. And that's why I chose to go down intelligent outsourcing, which is another kind of fellow CIMA member who I knew, but also, funnily enough, he's in Simon's Mastermind group, and he's got probably about there's a lot of the kind of forward-thinking accountants have got people out there, and so it's a kind of proven kind of, and it was a bit of a no-brainer for me.
Brilliant. So that from a Jan perspective, you can get them to do whatever it is that you like, you would like them to do.
Yeah,
and sorry, Kim.
Yeah, you just need to be clear what you want them to do.
And Andrew, that's answered your question around who it is. So it's Intelligent Outsourcing. Nikolai Naylor runs that organisation.
If you get in touch with Simon or me,
yeah, I'll pass.
We can pass the details on, or have a conversation with you. Quite happy to do that.
Pass it on. And then just have you had any adverse reaction from customers?
No, I mean, it's one of those where I don't necessarily kind of broadcast it. People know. Ultimately, I mean, we've got pictures on the bottom of our emails, so it's clearly obvious. That he's not of English descent, shall we say? But no, most people kind of fine about it. I mean, some people will just assume that he's in the UK. Again, why would it make any difference where they're sat? They're, effectively, managed by us. So.
Yeah, it literally makes no difference whatsoever. It's all, there's a mental limiting belief around it for me. But and David's asked, how long has it taken you to get offshore to work well?
I think it worked well from, pretty much early days because of the, the training, but it's no different to having somebody in your practice, is it? We've all had great employees and not so good employees, and it's all down to kind of training and recruiting. And again, that's why it's, I wouldn't do it myself and go to the Philippines, as it were, because you haven't got that control. But the way intelligent offshoring, outsourcing is set up, you've got recruitment help, based over there and in the UK. So it just works really well.
Brilliant. Thank you. So there's a couple more questions in the box from Jan and Jason, which we'll get to if we've got time at the end, Jan and Jason. I've not forgotten them, but we've got some questions around masterminding and the benefit that Kim has experienced from that. So I just want to cover those off, and we've got 14 minutes to go in order to, and then we'll come back if we can. So masterminding, Kim, what pain were you in before you started masterminding? So what was you experiencing?
For me, I don't think I was in any particular pain. It was more of a kind of, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I always like to learn, make sure I'm not doing something I shouldn't, or, can be more efficient. So it was about seeking out, there's loads of kind of quotes on this, but it's all about growing the business owner before you can grow the business effectively. So for me, I needed to be the best that I could be. And so I looked at how to do that. And obviously you can go so far with courses, but I didn't come from a practice background. So for me, it was really important that I got that help and support. And I was quite lucky that, my institute do a members in practice conference, which if anyone's a CIMA member, book on it and go, it's amazing. And I was quite lucky that ultimately Simon came and presented. And, I liked, and again, it's all about personal choice, isn't it? You've got to be able to work with somebody. I love the way that, Simon said it as it was. He didn't dress it up. But again, for me, it was really important that somebody walks the walk, not just talks the talk. And obviously Simon had a practice. He'd, turned it around, and obviously made a massive impact. And that's what I liked. I had a coach before Simon, who was okay, but not brilliant, if I'm honest. And that's the problem that you've got, and it's the same. It comes back to what we talked about earlier, that, there are a lot of people out there that are mediocre or okay. And then there are people that, really know the stuff. And for me, it was important not only that the person, in the room is good, as it were, and I can learn from them, but also from the person at the front that, has walked that walk in front of me, as it were.
If I remember correctly, that the night of this conference, you paid me in red wine.
Yeah, I wanted some advice on buying a practice, if I remember rightly.
That was the currency of the evening. So yeah. So just to come back to that pain you were in before you started the mastermind, or what you was looking for, you was looking to join a community of peers, basically, to give you a different perspective on your thinking process. And,
absolutely.
Yeah, and challenge you. Yeah, challenge you from there. It's like, don't be so stupid, Kim. It's like a different thought process than just going on a course and developing that information yourself.
Yeah, it was very much kind of an itch of, is there something I'm missing here? Can I get there where I want to get to quicker? And what's the best practice? What do the best in the in the industry do? Not just kind of watching what I think, but actually working with these people and learning from these people. And I've not been the most confident in the world in terms of where I've got to. I'm always quite humble in terms of, you can always learn from other people, and I've picked up an awful lot of stuff that I wouldn't have known about. You're kind of consciously incompetent. You're unconsciously incompetent because you don't know what you don't know, and that's why it's really important to be part of a community where you can all kind of grow together, because you need to become consciously incompetent before you can move to consciously competent. And it's just the journey of your business, and that growth curve.
Thank you. So what was it like when you first started masterminding and you joined? Because yeah,
it was absolutely kind of, I mean, most people think I'm extremely confident because I'm a little bit like a swan, really, pedaling furiously under the water, but you wouldn't necessarily know. So I kind of stepped into the room. I'm quite, again, as you probably noticed, a bit gobby in terms of I'm not afraid to speak, but I'd like to think that I listen first and then input. And it's not just the kind of, I'm not one of these people that just need to speak for the sake of it. It's the genuine, the lovely thing for me about the group. So if anyone is thinking about it, I'd definitely say go ahead and do it. And I know Simon does some test drives. You will get tremendous value from those in any case. It's about, you don't know what you don't know. So go along, listen. For me, yeah, it was a little bit terrifying, but I was amazed at how warm everybody was in the group. We all help each other. I sat there thinking, I'm the worst of the worst in this group, and actually, nobody thinks like that at all. Everybody's really helpful, and it doesn't matter whether you're, £1 million plus turnover business or just starting out. There's always things that you can help other people. We don't know everything there is to know.
Brilliant. Thank you. So Mark will pop a URL in the chat box. So if you'd like to have a conversation with me or Mark about how the masterminds work and how it all goes on, it's a more detailed conversation than we're going to look at this morning. But Mark will pop the URL in the chat box. You just click that, stick your name in it, and then we'll be in touch in order to have that conversation. So just to refresh that, Kim, because I think it's important to be conscious of the nervousness sometimes when people go into that environment, especially if a group's big. It's like starting a new school when you.
Sure. Yeah, it is. Yeah. You don't know anybody, you don't know the backgrounds. I mean, I'm one of those people that I'll always try and do a bit of research, even before I go networking to see who's there, so I don't look a complete idiot. But yeah, it's really nervous. It was for me. And as I say, everyone thinks I'm uber kind of confident. But actually, there's nothing to be nervous about because, Simon, Mark are amazing, will look after you and, and make you feel really welcome, as will the rest of the people in the group. And I'm actually, I've been members of a couple of groups. I've got one that's a kind of business and kind of marketing and obviously the accountancy one. Now, for me, the accountancy one is brilliant because everyone's running the practice. And as I say, it really helps me to be able to ask questions and there's no stupid questions either. We can ask well, how do you price this? How do you do that system? And we'll all share and we get a tremendous amount of value from it. And as I say, it doesn't matter, how where you are in your life cycle of your business. I can't speak highly enough of it. And also the big thing that grows you is you will be held accountable. And again, there's nothing to worry about here. The biggest information is kind of sterile unless you do something with it. So you've got to implement to make progress. And that's the beauty of the mastermind group. Everyone's there willing you on to do stuff and to improve and to have a better business and more profit and all the rest of it. And everyone's genuinely interested. It's not holding you accountable for the sake of it. It's to make you a better kind of business owner.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, and David, just for the numbers of each mastermind group are maxed out at 10. So there will never be, occasionally there's 11, but it's 10, no more than 10, in order to give everybody an opportunity to share and understand each other and build a relationship. So just to finish off, we've looked at the scary aspect of it, Kim. What's the biggest value? And I know the actual environment is quite a vulnerable and intimate situation. So what could you share as to sort of, wow, that was a moment?
There's so many, to be honest, because we had a session the other week that was a guy called Marlor came and spoke to us about leadership. And there was so many kind of light bulb moments of, wow, I need to do that, take that back into my business and be a better leader, and obviously get more out of my team. So, there's phenomenal kind of value from the speakers, from listening to Simon and the other guys and girls around the table, as it were. And also we can't at the moment because of COVID, but pre-COVID we meet up the night before and have dinner together, and it's those informal sessions as well, where we're all talking to each other and just asking questions and picking each other's brains, as it were. And then obviously the relationships that you build where you can ask questions. We have a WhatsApp group where we fire questions, and again, it's that help and support. So there's just I can't tell you the one that's most beneficial. There's just so many aspects of it.
Yeah, I find the WhatsApp group and the instant information I find remarkable. So sometimes you look at it and it's like somebody posts a question and very quickly it's like 4 or 5, don't be so silly type scenario. And then other times it's like, oh, that's a really interesting idea. And then they run with and explore with the opportunity that's been presented. So, I mean,
just to kind of give you a bit of an example of that one, we had, in our group, somebody asked about recruitment. And again, everybody sort of said, oh yeah, I'll share with you a job advert, and very, very quickly they got probably 3 or 4, and it's that kind of support. We're not in competition with each other, we're all helping each other.
Brilliant, thank you. And actually, in one of the groups, there are 2 firms in competition with each other, right? They are literally 6 minutes down the road from each other, and they're in the same group, and they share and help each other because they believe that working together helps their community, and away it goes. So it's a really interesting, for me, it's a really interesting and the ultimate degree of collaboration. So we have 3 minutes, Kim. If you want to find out more about the Mastermind, just click the link, put your details in, and we'll be in touch. Let's fire down some of these last questions if we can. Roland's asked, what is the name of the marketing group that you're a member of?
I'm a member of a number of things, but one of them is the Entrepreneur Circle.
Brilliant, thank you. Jan has asked, are you able to divulge the percentage split between working in and on the business, and has it changed over the last few years?
Absolutely. I couldn't tell you the exact number. I don't do anywhere near as much as I used to. For me, it's very important to kind of spend the time, managing the team, being a better business owner, and obviously developing the business. So for me, it's very much working on and in, but you've got to find time for both. Clearly, when you first start out, you're going to be working more in the business. But then as you grow and the cash flow grows and the profitability and stuff, you then need to look at bringing staff in or outsourcing. You don't have to just take staff on and take it from there. But definitely find some time each day to work on the business. Doesn't have to be a lot, could be half an hour, 10 minutes, but everything will move you closer to your goal.
Brilliant, thank you. It's a really interesting question, Jan, because I find the split between on and in the business a distinction that mentally I find difficult. So I am always working on my business. On a Sunday morning, whilst I'm eating whatever it is for breakfast, I am working on the business. And the other thing is when you go out networking and then somebody says, nobody says to you, what business are you on? They all say, what business are you in? So we're all working in the business all of the time. If we was working on the business, then I don't quite know where we would be. So I can get quite passionate. About that, Jan. Jason's asked, and these are yes, no answers, Kim, if we can, please. Right. I know, Mark, if you could pop that URL in the chat box, the one to find out more at the end, that would be great. Does your offshore team communicate with clients?
No.
Perfect. How do you get over work going offshore rather than to your internal staff? Does it make a difference?
No.
And what's your future goal to reach the number of clients to? So how big do you want to get, Kim?
It's not clients, it's profitability and turnover.
Brilliant, excellent, thank you. So it's about what success looks like to you rather than the number of transactions that you undertake. And that is now bang on 10:30. So as I said, if anybody would like to find out more about the Mastermind, then if you click on the link that Mark will pop in the chat box now, that would be great. And obviously we'll be in touch to do that and to have the conversation. So that just leaves me to say thank you massively to everybody that's come along and asked the questions of Kim today. And ultimately, Kim, massive thank you to coming along and sharing with the community your challenges, your inspirations, and the way that you work in order to make sure that let's just say give people confidence to potentially take that first step and to branch out. So as always, a virtual round of applause, Kim. And we will catch up soon. We've got lots of thank yous coming in through the chat box, as you can see. So what I'll do is I'll leave the chat box open for a little while so you can click on the links, and then we will disappear. So brilliant, Kim. Thank you. Bye-bye. 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 Thank you for watching the recording of this online meeting with Kim Marlor from KMA. I am sure you've got lots of insights and ideas and actions that you can take. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to post them in the comment section below and we'll gladly answer them. Please remember to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel so you get notified of future videos that we upload. On the screen now below me, somewhere down here, you should find our suggestions of the next videos that you watch on our channel. I am sure you'll find them as inspiring, challenging and supporting as you have the Kim one.